So Mike is Suzanne Lescure's caregiver. I have not been a caregiver of ocular melanoma, but I did just have a very long stint as a caregiver for my mom. And it is a tough, tough job. So we're going to talk to you about some of the things that you can do to make it easier in the realistic world, not in the emotional sense. We can touch on the emotional stuff also if you want, but you know, being a caregiver, you puts a lot of responsibility on your shoulders that you really did not ask for, and you might not be equipped to handle. So we want to make sure that we have a really good support group for our caregivers. One of the things that's a really good thing to do is to check in with your local hospital. They do have caregiver support groups that might be beneficial for you. One of the really great tools is to make for yourself is a binder that you can keep yourself organized with any appointments or anything that you have to do. This is separate from your significant other's, parent, child's medical records. This is just for you. And it's going to be your Bible that you can take with you when you need to, that's going to tell you where you need to be, what you need to be doing. Some of us, the other partner might have handled all the finances before, and now it's thrust on you, and you have to try to figure out how to take over. And these are all kind of great big jobs.
Yeah, so how many have recently become caregivers in the last year or so? Right, so it's kind of like you say, you're just kind of thrown into it, a job that you weren't necessarily prepared for. And for me, I'm not a super emotional guy, so when it started happening, when she was Sue, and unfortunately she's here in the room here, so I can get the trash all the time.
You can hear everything now.
She can hear everything now, so when she got her diagnosis, when it advanced to stage 4, in around 2005, 6, it was kind of a shock in her UCSF, and it turned out that we got the news from Dr. Kashani and Dr. Miner, and it was a shock because she looks like now. She's really healthy, wasn't really sick. She just did have the lymph node resection done here, but and we were doing eye stuff at UCSF. Anyway, I'm own a construction company, and we do a lot of hospital work. So we medical gas systems, emergency generators at UCSF, at Stanford, at all the hospitals that we eventually still participate with now. But it was a bit of a shock to get the news because right away she started crying, got upset, and it was like, well, this doesn't seem right. I can't. It hit me as well. It doesn't seem right. So, but we're going to treat it as we're going to treat this as a construction project, right? And we're highly successful at construction projects. So here's a project, and we're going to go ahead and we'll beat this thing. But the key was that she was 100% committed to start the only option was this biochemotherapy that wasn't on the market yet, that Dr. Miner was testing. I think for caregivers, if your other half's not committed to make their 100% effort on their side, it's very difficult to be a caregiver and give 100% on your side, to be honest with you. I mean, if the patient's going, I don't know if I can make it, or I can't do all the treatments, and it makes it even harder on you as caregivers. The reason her and I have worked out so well is because she's committed 100%. She's worked in the medical, the communication side, medical terminologist, so she's pretty smart on the medicines and the drugs, and which you can see she's on top of that even today. What Melody and Sue, I try to convince her this all the time, they're both caregivers. They've been caregivers a long time because what we're doing today is caregiving, right? So they caregive for others, and actually she's 13 years cancer-free. We don't even need to be here, right? But honestly, she wants to be here. Now she's wants to be. We've created this family that, okay, well, I think the best word, I like the word caregiver personally. I think it adds something. I like support staff,
Yeah, we are trying to change the terminology, but unfortunately people don't quite understand it yet. We're trying to change over from caregiver to supporter, because not everybody wants to be a caregiver. You want to be the supporter of your person. So if you don't have to look at yourself as a caregiver, you're their support staff. So that means all kinds of things, and it depends on your person that you're supporting on what that means to you all. So don't get stuck into that caregiver means nurse, because that's not what a caregiver means. A caregiver means you're a supporter. You're going to support that person, not even necessarily emotionally, but you're going to just be there as their backup. You're going to go to their appointments with them, take notes, record it. That's a huge thing to do. If you're just not sure, you ask the physician's permission first. You just take your cell phone and you just record. And then that way when you get home, you can listen and say, oh, I remember now that he said that I had forgotten. Or, oh, my doctor said this, but I had forgotten. And so it kind of gives you a little bit of a backup. So these are all tools that you're going to take with you as you support your person. I think by calling ourselves supporters, we are allowing ourselves to distance ourselves from the day-to-day care of somebody. Now, if you have a metastatic patient and then you're kind of thrown into being that kind of nurse caregiver, but for the most of us, we're going to support. It could mean anything from taking their arm to helping them down a curb, to taking over the finances, to helping them drive. You be the designated nighttime driver, or maybe your person can't drive at all anymore. So now that's thrust on you, and so now you have to run all the errands for the family. And that's not something that maybe was your job before. Maybe that was their job. But by taking it and looking at it as a business and getting a good plan for you, you're not going to get caught off track, and you're also not going to get overwhelmed. Because you have to draw the line and know when I can't do this. And it's okay to say, I want to support you, but I cannot do this for you. Let's find somebody else that can do this for you. And that's perfectly okay. Because just because your person is diagnosed with any kind of a disease does not mean that you are now obligated to do every single thing for them. Because you're a person, you have needs, you have boundaries, and you need to make sure you set those boundaries. That's very, very important. So if you can't cook and you don't know how to cook, and your person is asking you to cook every meal every day, maybe you need to look at takeout or delivery meals or something else, frozen food. Whatever it is that works for you, you have to figure out a way to adjust around it. You can't expect, if you've never cooked before, to all of a sudden now you're a gourmet cook. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we really need to figure out what we're capable of doing, make a list of what you're capable of doing, and then say, this is what I can do for you, and let's get a plan and let's go forward. And if your person says, but I need you to do all of this for me, and it's not what you can do, like Mike, who's not an emotional person, he wants, it's business. It's what we got to do. We're going to get through this, and this is our plan, and we go. You can't ask him to hold you and cuddle you and pat your back and carry you through, because that's just not his personality. So your person then needs to find that somewhere else. And that's okay for you to say, look, I'm not that, I can't do that for you, but I can do all of this for you. And that way you don't get overwhelmed and your person doesn't feel like they're not supported.
Right. We do hug and love you kids. We do.
Well, I just use you as an example.
That's a good.
He's really a really sweet, nice guy.
He's emotional a bit.
So yeah, as you get older, maybe get a little more emotional ways.
Mike, years ago we had a saying in the rehab, the drug rehab, hugs not drugs.
Right.
There you go.
So yeah, until this started happening, I don't think I ever hugged anybody up to that point. It was like, no, I don't hug, so don't ask, Plus I'm 6'6", and everybody hug is 5 foot. So my grandmother was 5 foot tall, right? And I was 6'6", and my grandma, her nose would be my belly button. But so Melody said something here that I think was really important. Sue and I go to every appointment together, every scan together, we go to everything together. And when we go out in the car, you can say, so what did you hear? Oh, that I might have this, I might get that, I might, she's kind of on the glass half empty side, even though she is very positive. person to get it done. And then I look at the other glass, you know, it's always positive. It's always, for me, it's always going to work out at the end. You know, my workers, my co-companies I work with, it always works out for him in the end for some reason. I think, well, it's not for some reason because you're always planning, right? You plan and you plan and you plan. But one thing I said, you know, be the recording secretary. So if caregiving or support staff is your business, right? Be the recording secretary, whether you're the finance person or you be the CFO of your little business. But the recording secretary is important because you want to hear what the doctor says. And you also want to ask questions related that are off the emotional side, right? You don't want to get into emotional questions with the doctor. So your patient's getting into the emotional questions with the doctor, right? Or most of the times. Caregiver, you want to hear the business side of the stuff, or hey, what's this going to cost? Can you sometimes, hey, doc, is there an alternative to this medication that actually my insurance will cover instead of, because the doctor can actually direct insurance anywhere, right? If they want to, if you ask the right questions. Being a recording secretary is important because, again, her and I have she's been told by Dr. Kim and Dr. Miner that she's cured of cancer. You might be the only person in the United States that's cured of cancer, and that's why this is a big deal that we still do what we're doing, because she doesn't believe she's cured of cancer. She still thinks she's a patient recovering, no sign of meds, you know, all that kind of stuff. But biochemotherapy she has happens to work out on her gene type or gene kit or whatever it is. She's wild type, and so the doctor goes, well, she's going to outlive us all because she's still, the drugs are still working on her. It'll always kind of found abuse drug, right? So, but she'll disagree. I can tell right now she's disagreeing with that at the moment. So,
that's a really good point, though, because I am a patient and a caregiver. So, as a patient, I look at my illness differently than I look at someone else's illness. To me, I own my illness. My illness is part of me. So I can speak to a caregiver as to how the patient is feeling. And sometimes we don't feel validated when you say, no, you're cured. You don't have this anymore. Because we hear from our doctors or our community, this is a lifetime disease. It could come back at any time. And so we kind of live with this fear of, when is the other shoe going to drop? You know, here we are, but well, I'm cured right now, but maybe I won't be. And maybe it's not a rational thought to some of you, but it's a very real thought to us. So if your person is in that thought process that they are not cured, don't be hard on them. Understand, accept it. Just kind of know that this is a mentality that we have because we're told it's a lifetime disease. Melanoma can come back at any time. We might look great. We might feel great. We might be able to do all things we used to do, but there's still that little voice in the back of our heads, and it will take over sometimes. So if it takes over, give us a little bit of space and kind of understand.
Yeah. Kind of at what Melody said. So, you know, in fact, she's sitting here, she's nodding yes, no, but the other qualification here is the different kinds of cancers have different kind of results. Now the choroidal cancer, which Melody had, I believe, there's a chance of liver and kidney metastasize, which currently is a very it's a very non-treatable process right now. I mean, there's treatment and there's always hope, but
there's just no cure right now.
There's no cure right now, but there was no cure for hers 15 years ago, right? And so all these things that we're doing here is that, now the concentration on us to find out, what do we do, what trials are there, what can we do for liver and what spreads the liver and kidney. So that really is the focus, I think, of us right now is that this situation solved. There's other situations out there. And again, make it more of a chronic disease where, like I said, Melody's point is, it's still in the back of her mind because it still could happen, right? And
yeah, I was diagnosed 8 years ago, so really I'm on the really good end. but there's still that little voice. And so my family doesn't understand. You know, my kids think, well, Mom, what's the matter with you? You know, and they don't understand that I have vision issues. They don't, you know, I keep telling them, hey, it's dark, I can't walk into a dark room without taking some time. And they charge ahead of me, and then they're like, what's wrong with you? Come on. And I'm like, you gotta give me time, to adjust, and they just don't get it, because you would think it would be the opposite. You would think when you live with someone for a long time that has an issue that you'd get used to it, it would be automatic, but it seems to be the opposite. The more normal we appear, the less concessions we're given. So try to keep that in your mind as well, that, you know, we still have concessions that we need. We still need an arm when we get off a curb. We still need you to go slow walking into a dark building. Whatever it is that your person needs, ask them, how can I support you? You know, we're going out to dinner, this restaurant might be dark. Can I read the menu for you? You know, these are all little tiny things that we don't think about that as a supporter really would make your person feel supported without causing too much strain on you and your emotional health as well. As a caregiver coming off caregiving for my mom who passed away in December, it's amazing how much the medical field puts on you when your person is ill. Especially in a metastatic case, the doctors and the nurses, palliative care, hospice, they put it on you. And I was having a really hard time with my mom. This is not an ocular melanoma story, but it's a relative story. My mom had metastatic lung cancer, and it was in her back, and she lost the ability to walk. Well, I have a very bad back, and I can't lift. And while she only weighed 110 pounds, which is, you know, nothing for a lot of people, I couldn't lift her anymore. And hospice, and they just didn't understand, and there was no way we could get help. There was, home health would come for 2 hours a day, and I had to figure out how to get her in bed, how to get her out of bed, how to get her into a chair, out of a chair. We'd not been able to lift her. But the good thing was I didn't just do it anyway. I talked to the doctor and I said, we need some physical therapy so that we can learn how to move her around. We can learn how to transfer her. So while you might have a situation that seems impossible, you need to really talk to them, and you need to be able to say to your physician or the support care staff, this is beyond my capability, I cannot do this. We need to figure out how to solve this problem because I am unable to do it. That is your right as a caregiver, and you have the ability to do that, and please take care of yourself and make sure that you do that. Do not put yourself in a situation that could be dangerous to you, could be dangerous to your person. Okay, don't feel like you have to take this all on. It is okay, I am giving you all permission right now to say, I can't do it. This is beyond my scope. And it's okay. And you're not letting your person down. You're not letting you down. You really do need to do that. So I'm giving everybody permission here to really take care of you. If you don't take care of you, you can't take care of them. And you have to know your boundaries, and it doesn't matter what those boundaries are, whether they're emotional, financial, physical. You have your boundaries, and you need to know that, and you need to communicate that with your person so that everybody is on the same page. Where we tend to get off balance in the supporting caregiving role is we don't communicate. The caregiver supporter's afraid to communicate with the patient's afraid to communicate with the caregiver, and now we have both people with needs that are unmet. And how do we get back to solving this problem? And sometimes it just means walking outside of the room, talking to the hospice nurse and saying, look, I need help, I can't do this. You don't have to do it in front of your person, you don't have to tell your person, but you just have to make sure you take care of you. Okay, so that's the biggest message that I want to bring to you guys today is it's okay to take care of yourself. Without taking care of you, you can't take care of them. Some of you might own an own business. Do any of you guys own your own business? Okay, we have somebody. So I want Mike to discuss about that because when Suzanne was diagnosed, Mike does own his own business, and it caused some stress. So in owning your own business or in working for a company, Joanna talked about the Family Leave Act. These are all kinds of things that you guys are on this kind of little precarious perch. You're the breadwinner now. Your person might not be working, so you've got to take care of them, but you need time off. But yet, how do you manage?
So that's kind of a good segue. So I always qualify these because, I'm a plumber, union plumber by trade. So I'm a tradesman most of it, and kind of moved into, always knew what I was going to do for the first 20 years of the 40-year career that I'm now in, not realize the next 20 years I'd be doing this, right? So, always qualify these sessions that there's been a huge advantage owning a business and having family, brothers in the business, and great employees that ran the business. When I'm here now, and I got, we've still got a business that's booming, up in Northern California. Most people don't have that. So how many of you are the breadwinners and have to go to work every day? Right? How many of you work for not such a nice company boss? Right? So there's the challenge. You have to go to work every day, right? Regardless. But like I said, there's family evac, there's things that the companies are required to allow you to do. And now, and especially in California, you get paid for some of that. So got to make sure you fill all the paperwork right. Get with your HR person, do all that kind of stuff up front, long before you. Don't wait till the last minute to do that stuff. Find out sit down with your HR person or your senior person or whatever, and we're not such a big company where you have departments of with like 8 of us in the office, so it's not, we can run a pretty good sized operation with 8 people in the office, but get your plan going now, right? So if this gets worse, if my patient gets worse, I should be starting to work on this today. Kind of, again, being a glass half full guy. I plan for the worst and I hope for the best, right? So as she started progressing, it was like, ooh, this is getting worse, So you don't plan stuff like funerals and stuff, but you plan, what's the next step? How am I going to fund? The interleukin wasn't covered in it, or the biochemotherapy wasn't covered under my insurance. Fortunately enough, we'd saved enough money up to that point to be able to buy it. So not a lot of people sitting in the room can just go out and buy the drug that actually saved your life, right? So again, we qualify that. So I would say that kind of what, like Melody was saying, plan it now. Plan it like you're the CFO, the recording secretary. Listen to everything. Listen to what the doctor's saying. If you do this, right? It's always, well, if you do this, that may help, right? And so that's what you want to do. Is what is that if? And kind of lean to that in that direction. What's it going to cost? What's clinical trials? Take time and money and all those things, and you got to be committed to it. So kind of shifting off that a little bit, but plan it now. And the other thing was kind of segue into a different thing. So one of the things we've had along the way, a lot of condescending doctors. And so being in the construction business, we're all condescending, right? So, and we all know everything. So we had one doctor, really good doctor, top doctor in the country, right? But he made sure you knew that he was the top doctor in the country, right? For ocular cancer and ocular melanoma. So I know Doug's probably touched on some of this stuff this morning. I heard a little bit of it, and your first 5 minutes. I've always been in the trade which says the first 10 minutes of your morning is going to set your day. So if you wake up and you're fighting from the night before, it's going to set your day. If you oversleep your alarm, you got to be at a meeting, it's setting your day. You're already messed up. When you meet somebody, the first 5 minutes, you find out, well, what kind of person is this? Here's a doctor. He's telling me, and she's come out of surgeries, and this doctor come out and he goes, and he doesn't know nothing about me, right? So he'd come out and he'd say, well, I'm going to tell you something, but it's probably way above your ability to understand. That's how he'd come out of the operating room, right? I said, oh, you think so, pal, huh? Okay. years later, got into tax trouble, and he called me to for tax help. But anyway, he had such a bad bedside manner. She went off to Philadelphia for second opinions eventually. But and then we came back. You know, still talk to him, still a great doctor. But you know, you got to pick your. When you guys are in a room listening to that, you know, don't feel like you have to accept everything as being shoved down your throat, right?
Paraphrase what you just alluded to. You have somebody that'll introduce themselves to you. He says, "Hi, my name is Steve. I'm great. If you don't believe me, ask me and I'll tell you."
Right.
And when we had our construction business, we had a sub that was like that.
Yeah. Well, we're all used to that kind of stuff.
Fortunately, he had good people working for him who knew how to do the job.
Yeah.
There's a lot of egos in medicine, and I am seeing a shift of that. But as the support staff, it's okay. You don't have to take that. You know, you can shut them down. In a respectful way. I mean, you know, these are your doctors, and they do deserve some respect for treating you and their knowledge. But at the same time, if you're not getting what you need from the doctor, it's okay to speak up. I think that's kind of the message that we want to drive home is speak up. It's okay. Have a conversation. You know, have you guys had a situation where you have felt not validated by a physician, or in a situation where you don't feel like you can care for your person? No, that's great. That's wonderful, because
Sometimes.
that happens more often than not. So for this room to nobody have had to go through that, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because that is the most helpless feeling, is when all of a sudden this doctor is treating you like you don't know what you're doing and you can't do this. It is kind of a concerning thing.
I think the other thing we noticed back then, also there wasn't a lot of doctors doing the ocular melanomas or ocular cancers. Back in 2003, there was just a couple, right? So obviously the Wills in Philadelphia were doing it. UCSF, where we went, and California Pacific was doing it. Now I think what you have now is good doctors that have come into the field in recent years that are suddenly thinking, hey, this is the place to be, you know. And
we are getting more collaboration and more doctors kind of talking in language we can understand. I know when we have conversations with doctors, we try to explain to them how important it is to, dummy it down a little bit for us. You can still tell us, but just don't use the great big words, because we don't really know what those words are. Does anybody have any questions or any difficulties that they've had with being a caregiver? Yes.
Carlin F. has a comment that she just says, being a caregiver is such a helpless feeling.
It is a very helpless feeling. She is very correct. It is so helpless. You can't fix it. You can't make it better. There's so much that you cannot do, but there's so much you can do. So try, unfortunately, that's difficult when you're in the caregiving thing. I know when I was taking care of my mom, I was saying I can't more than I can. And it beats you down. And it really does. It is a tough job. But it is a job. And it's a job you didn't ask for. And it's okay to say, I didn't ask for this. I don't want to do this. And find somebody to make you feel like you're not so helpless and you're not so lost and alone. Get a support group, get a support system, recruit other family members to help if you can, if you have family members. It doesn't all need to be on your shoulder. You are a supporter. You are not the support of the foundation. You're just there for them to lean on. You're there to help them. You're not there to hold them up and to do everything. I think, speaking from a caregiver, a woman caregiver especially, is we do tend to want to take it all on. We think, okay, we got to fix this and we got to do this and I got to take care of everybody, because especially women, we're kind of raised that way to be the nurturers and the carers, and we take on too much, and a lot of times it's way over our heads. We can't do that. But you need to find that support staff, and it's okay to hand it off. Yes, sir.
One of the things that my wife does sometimes is tell me I'm not, when she disagrees with me, she tells me, you're not wearing your shirt. Well, I have some t-shirts that I found at JCPenney's when they were ad, and I went there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I bought everything they had. It says, let's just presume I'm never wrong. And she said, you're not wearing your shirt.
There you go.
So, you have people streaming. How many of you heard yet? Maybe you have heard or you haven't. You are not the one with the cancer, so you don't know.
Oh,
Right?
my gosh, yes.
And I mean, literally, I'm sleeping on the floor of her hospital room and at night, and working in the next room, run my business in the next room of the hospital. And once in a while, you get, well, you don't know. It's actually a reaction to you don't have cancer, so you don't know what it's like. It's, well, you've not been here every day for 24. You know, I do. You don't know what it's like, and this is either. So. It's and when you go to bed at 2 in the morning and she's in the hospital and you got a daughter in junior high and a son in high school now and her mother living behind us is now dying of cancer before she finished her treatments, and it just it becomes a lot. So at one point she was at California Pacific in San Francisco and her mother was at Kaiser in Walnut Creek. And it was like, got to go to the, and then I was, her father too was the executor of her father's estate. Her father had congestive heart failure in '98. And really, that was kind of really started teeing me up to the caregiver mode. Of really her father was the one. And I saw how he thought he lived in the moment because he thought he was going to die any day, right? Because he was having heart attacks, and he had his first heart attack when he was code blue at 35 or something like that. And, that's when I discovered that he did, and he worked for Kaiser, executive for Kaiser, and actually he's the creator of teleconferencing. So if you look up Bob Bodine, Robert Bodine's godfather of teleconferencing. So I kind of started to get a taste of, this is in '98, and I took over the business the same week he went in and started having heart issues. So my dad retired, started buying the business. Her father started having congestive heart failure in January, right 3 weeks after started taking over the business, and he unfortunately did not set up anything. And I've come to find out he had $50,000 in credit card debt when he passed away. I was like, holy crap, so, then we came out paying it off because there was he did get benefits from Kaiser, but it was a year later, a year after he had passed before we straightened it all out. And one thing I'll always say about Kaiser is the higher-ups at Kaiser made sure that the family was taken care of, because, which they didn't have to do, but they did that. So always thank them for that. But she wasn't on any of the checking accounts. She never wrote a check. Her mother-in-law never wrote a check before. You have to spend money on a credit card, but never wrote a check before. So,
but these are all things you face as a caregiver.
It's a surprise. It's a surprise. So I mean, we lead up to it, but sometimes it's hard when you're going through your own journey and you can't talk about this to your patient. Most of this stuff you can't. That's why we're in here alone.
We've been.
But she's still rolling her eye. She rolled her eye, not her eyes.
Well, the last session today is on finances and wills and trusts, because this is something that you all are going to face at some point. Somebody, when you have cancer, you tend to think about, I got to get my finances in order. And everybody should, especially as you advance in age, you should have them in order. So we are going to talk about that. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a comment for the caregivers, and it's okay to see a psychologist or somebody that you can talk to like that's not even related to you, and be able to express yourself, and not worry your family, not worry your loved one that you're taking care of. So that's a good thing to do too.
Yeah, a counselor, a psychiatrist, psychologist, best friend, anybody that you can find. And there are many hospitals that will have support groups for caregivers. There's cancer patient support groups. They also have caregiver support groups, and they're very, very important. It's hard, I know, to go. It's hard to talk to people that you not ever talk to. It's hard to talk about your feelings to people you don't know. But you don't have to talk, you just go listen, but sometimes just getting away. If you don't want to do that, take yourself to a movie, take yourself out to dinner. Don't forget, one of the biggest things is don't forget your connections outside of your family. You might start losing friends because you're so busy caregiving. You need to cultivate those relationships because they're very important to you. So that's another huge thing is, make sure you have your support system wherever it is that feels good to you, and you use them because it's a long road. If you've just been diagnosed with ocular melanoma, it's lifetime.
There's another question online here from Nikki, and you addressed that a bit, but she says, as the one who is going to be the caregiver, how do I stay positive for him? And I do not let him see how hard this is. That is the biggest thing I am struggling with right now. How do you plan for the inevitable of knowing that one day that 3-month scan will come back not how we want it to? When that happens, I need to be the strong one, and that's so hard.
I don't think I have an answer for that one, because it's still the same, no matter what happens, I personally try to think about that time will come, if it hasn't come, or, I'm trying to think about the negative of what can, but I don't think I can actually answer that question, because I'm the same way. I don't know how to really deal with it till I get there. Right, so even things like this, I don't plan to come be a speaker. I see my name's on the thing, I show up, so I'm going to BS my way through it. So
I would say that the best thing to do is live in today, not in tomorrow. Doug talked a lot about that. We got to live in today because tomorrow hasn't happened. You want to talk about that, Doug?
Well, yeah. The images we're creating, the stories that we're telling, our brain doesn't know the difference. So we actually, in life, we end up, like as an example, just to take it away from all the heaviness, just close your eyes for a minute and imagine there's a lemon in front of you. Just see that lemon on the table and just grab the lemon and start squeezing it a little bit and feel the juice inside the lemon starting to get soft. The pulp is softening, and then there's a knife next to it. Imagine grabbing a knife and cutting that lemon in half. And then take that lemon and squeeze it and see some of the juice dripping down, and bring that lemon up to your face right now and imagine the citrusy scent starting to fill your nose and maybe a little sprinkle of the juice flying off the pulp as you squeeze it. And imagine taking a bite into that lemon. Now, how many of you, your mouth started to water just a little bit?
I grow lemons.
You grow lemons, so you got that. But what happens is, as you be present, when there's an experience going on, if we take our brain and we put ourselves in it, it experiences the pain as if it's really happening. Our brain doesn't know the difference as to what's really happening or what isn't. So when we're catastrophizing a future experience, a future event, our bodies will feel it. It'll respond as if it's really happening, which will then make us less resourceful and less present for what we really need to do. And it's not easy, but it is a simple concept to remember that when you start getting out of the present moment and start fearing the future or recalling some past experience, all you're doing is re-experiencing something that is no longer or hasn't yet happened. And you've all driven a car before, right, or know of one? So when you're driving and you're looking at an address to the side of the road, let's say you're looking at this, the address is on the side of the road and you're looking to get that's the address you're looking for, where does the car go? It starts going towards the right, towards what it is. It may not be, you're not there yet. It could be 2 miles down the road, but you're looking at all of it to make sure it's not there, and that's right there, and then we end up pulling ourselves towards it. So whatever we can do to re-present ourselves to what's happening in this moment is going to be a lifesaver, Because if there's nothing happening in this moment, you could be present. If we start pulling things from other timelines, we're going to find ourselves in that challenge. So what Mike, you were saying earlier, is like, hey, if it hasn't happened yet, there's nothing I can do about it. So I don't know if that was a helpful example,
That
just
was
to re-present ourselves. Our brains don't know the difference, don't care.
Yeah.
It's just a machine.
I've tried always, you know, and especially in the business too, you know, there's people who think this is going to be a big catastrophe that's going to happen on a project, right? When we do safety, we do those things to prevent the catastrophe, right? And sometimes, what I'm having a hard time with, actually probably should invite Doug up one of these days, we're training a lot of 18 to 35-year-olds in our industry right now. So my job as a trying to retire kind of guy and turn the business over is getting the 20-something-year-olds, you know, there's a missing generation from 35 to 50. And we have nobody in that window in our business at all, or in the whole construction industry. That's our problem with owners. But now is trying to teach people to say, what you need to think about is not worry about the future, but what are the possibilities? What are the possibilities, or what could go wrong if you do this or if you do that? You know, it's basically the building blocks. You know, so kind of slipping off that a little bit, but anyway, I and what you guys might try to do is just try not to think about the worst case scenario yet, because it hasn't happened.
I'll just tell you a little scenario with me. I was diagnosed 8 years ago, almost 9. And because of my medical history, it was prior to biopsies, but I had a medium-sized tumor. I had had a previous cancer. My doctors told me I had 2 to 5 years to live. And I'm just going to tell you what it did to me. It made me spin. And I spun bad. Messed up my marriage. My husband said, I'd rather divorce you than marry you. Okay? So, it can get really, really dark really fast if you let it go too far ahead of you. 2 years, I am not kidding. I told people I'm terminal. Because my doctor told me I had 2 to 5 years to live. So I'm thinking I'm terminal. Well, I'm 8 years and I'm still sitting here. And I am fine. I don't have any metastasis anywhere. So, with that, I don't want people to get so caught up into the what ifs, because I wasted 2 years of my life thinking I was dying. What I didn't live like I was dying. I was dying. I should have been, you know that song, you probably all heard it from Tim McGraw, Live Like You're Dying? I did not do that. I did the opposite. I was depressed. I was sad. My husband and I were fighting. And I remember I would do that, like, you know, you don't know you're not a cancer patient. You don't know you're not terminal. And I needed the fill-up of, because I felt so empty and I felt so lost and I didn't want to die, and I was too young. I was only, 48, and oh my gosh, this is terrible. How is this happening? But I wasted 2 years of my life. I let go of the anger. I started a cure at sight. I took my anger and I put it somewhere else, and I made better choices, and it didn't weigh me down anymore. So that would be my thing, is that when you're looking at the what ifs, it'll ruin your life. It really will. It'll ruin your relationships. We have a lot of cancer patients who get divorced because it causes too much conflict. The cancer patient needs too much stuff, the caregiver needs stuff, they're not communicating, and it really can mess you up. But as soon as I turned it around, and I found an outlet for my anger, which was starting a charity to benefit ocular melanoma, as soon as I started living for today, and I started spending more time with the kids and grandkids, I started traveling, doing more things, my attitude changed. And now I no longer fear it. I went from getting scans every 3 months to getting scans once a year. I had to do whatever I had to do to make the shift, so that it didn't consume me and it didn't overwhelm me. And I think that's the best way I can describe it, is if you get caught up in it, it will ruin you. But get out of it and live for today, because that's all you got. And I know people don't like hearing it, but you could get hit by a bus tomorrow, and it has happened. I knew, here's a story. My mother had some friends that she knew their whole adult life. They never took vacations, saved up money for retirement. This is an honest to God true story. Saved up money for retirement. They both retired the same year. Their very first trip, they went to Tahoe. They were so excited. They're going to go see Lake Tahoe. They crossed the street and got hit by a tour bus. That is an honestly true story. So take that with you and remember that, because they didn't live in their moments. They lived in the future. And they saved and they did all this stuff and they never even got to experience it. And it was very sad. And I felt very bad for them because their whole life they just worked and worked and worked and didn't do anything fun. And they never got to. So I hope that helps. I don't know if it did.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. I did the same thing. For the first 20 years, I already knew how many millions I was going to make by a certain age. You know, I was already doing that kind of thing. And then when this happened, it was like, well, I'm thinking of the future. You know, I'm going to do all this stuff. You know, I'm going to retire when I'm 50. I'm going to, you know, and I was on tracking to do that. But when this came up, so like, whoop, you know, you put on the brakes and you change your whole mentality of how you got to do that. We've actually, you say give while you live, we almost gave too much away while we've lived. So we're back kind of, yeah, living by check again, you know, so, you know, that's okay. It's changed, you know, changed me and my goals. It's changed my personality a little bit. One of the things that's kind of related to all this stuff too, an observation I've had, so we've been doing these panels for probably almost 15 years, I think, or 10 years anyway, with different MRF and different groups that we started out with, how we all met. I think our wedding vows are for better or for worse, right? Somebody goes, well, better, you're doing the worst part. It's, no, I've never had a worse part. I've had married for better or difficult moment, right? There's only difficult moments in your time if you have that. So we've had difficult moments in our marriage, we've difficult moments in cancer battles, difficult moments raising kids, you know, whatever, difficult moments in business. And if you can just make up your mind that they're just difficult moments and just plan to get around them. The thing that we always had is our sense of humor. I think her and I, even when she used to laugh, she'd get shots and she'd make this funny face when she'd get shots because it hurt so bad and couldn't stop laughing, you know, when she was making the face. So the nurses, it became kind of a game, but you know, we still laugh about things. We try to bring humor to these, you know, have some fun, go out, you know, have fun last night, you know, make it fun.
I agree with what Mike said. I think, you know, you come to these meetings, sometimes they get a little heavy, but we don't want it to be heavy. What we're really trying to do is lighten it up. We're trying to get you guys to get out of the ocular melanoma in your head. It's a side job, you know. You've got finances, you've got kids, you've got your jobs, you've got all this stuff, and ocular melanoma is really a very small part. Until it metastasizes, then it becomes a larger part. Don't let this very small part take over your whole entire world, because you got to look at it as a business. You know, you got to look at it as, okay, this is our game plan. This is what we're going to do, and don't look too far down the road. Kind of just stay here, and you know you got to get through the next 6 months or the next, you know, till the next scan or whatever. Just don't worry about it till you hit that 6-month part where the scan's coming. Then you worry about it, because you can't help it. I'm just going to tell you right now, you're not going to ever be able to not worry about it. About a week before the scan, you start getting a little edgy, your person's going to start getting cranky, and there's going to be some snipping, and there's going to be some crying, and there's just going to be some anger, because it's called scanxiety. We all have it, and you guys have to put up with it. But when we get all clear, we're all happy again. So you could just give us that like 2 weeks, then we'll be happy again.
Or you can say, yes, I can.
Yes, you can, exactly.
And so kind of maybe one last thing. So one of the things I've always tried to do is make sure she, like, somebody might get to a point where, well, I don't think I can drive anymore because my eye. So I try to let her drive as much as possible so that so recently we went to Nevada through Tahoe and drove on Highway 87, which is super winding, and she goes, well, I can't drive at night. I said, well, who says you can't drive at night? Well, I can't see. I said, sure. I said, okay. So we drove up the Sierras, and let her drive up 50 and over to 89 and down into Nevada and at night in the dark, and deer ran right in front of us, and she saw it and I didn't see it, you know, so there you go. So
There you go.
and so
The old
she,
deer in the headlights route.
yeah, so I'm, you know, kind of, I'm probably half asleep, but, and, you know, you talk about good faith, it is real difficult sitting in that passenger seat, and she's, you know, doing this in the dark, and then we're coming back, so I want her to be, she wants to drive and visit her family in Nevada, and so the only way she's gonna be able to achieve that, if she can drive it herself, right? And so when we go up there now, you drive, and I let her drive, so you drive all the way back, right? And get used to driving, and not me telling you, hey, you got to merge here, you got to take a left there, you got to do all these things, right? Which she's, you know, if I'm not there yakking at her, she knows what to do. So the other funny thing she did, I think is her depth perception, but she just tailgates trucks and cars. She's like, I can read the serial numbers on the plates, you know. It's like, yeah, hey, can you back? You're making me a little nervous. Can you back off of it a little bit? And then so we were coming back. She's following this white car down 50, and it goes for about 35 miles in the 2-lane windy part. Well, then you get down to the foothills, and it splits into 4 lanes. Well, we're coming down. I know it splits. It's 4 lanes, so she's following this car, so anyway, following this car kind of close, but, you know, it's traffic, so. All of a sudden, you know, I'm kind of half drifting off, and we take a sharp right-hand turn off the highway. All of a sudden, I look up this, and we're going up this little dirt road up into the Sierras. I says, where are you going? I'm following the white car. So the white car, he's like a serial killer up the hills. And I'm like, following him. I said, this is the kind of thing, if you're going to drive by yourself, you cannot just follow the car in front of you, right? Because this is how you get lost. You follow somebody into some backwoods, whatever. So.
Well, you know that what Mike brings up a good point, and Doug talked about it yesterday, is sometimes our patients get what they need from being helpless. And so sometimes, I'm not saying you, Sue, sometimes what we do though is we make excuses why we can't do something. And they're very rational in our heads. They're not rational to you guys. You guys are like, come on, what the heck, right? But Doug was talking about that is a way that we do fill ourselves up, because we get attention, we get care, we get people to do things for us. And I'm going to tell you, it's not an intentional thing, but we do it. And we're going to do it. Oh, I can't drive. I can't drive at night. Oh, you know, I'm sorry. I'm guilty. This is me. I don't understand technology. I can't do it. Somebody else do it for me. Because it's hard for me to see, to plug cables in. It's hard for me to see and make sense in my head all of this stuff. And so I back out, and I can't do it. I can't do that. And that is my thing. And it makes everybody angry. I just moved and lived by myself for the first time ever in my entire life at 57 years old. First time in my life I have lived entirely on my own. It's an eye-opener how much I relied on other people to do things for me, saying, oh, I can't see. You know what? I live by myself. I get around just fine, because I thought I couldn't. So be careful of that. That's a slippery slope, and that's a trap that we don't know we're setting, but we set it. And until we're pushed, we're gonna take the easy way out, and we're gonna ask you guys all to do it. Do this for me. I can't see. I can't. You know. And I mean, some of it is valid. We have bad depth perception issues. Sue just spilled water all over the table. You know, these things happen, and those are valid. But at the same time, we will use it against you, and we don't need to, but we will. So keep an eye out, because we will.
Actually, the driving thing, she's been talking about, oh, I got to be back here before dark. You know, I never really thought about it, but it progressively happened, right? She progressively, and it's been going on for like a year or two. So it just dawned on me that, well, she's telling me she can't drive at night, but how does she know she can't drive at night? Because she said to me, well, I can't go over here because I can't drive at night. Well, I got to be home by this time because I can't drive at night. And then it was it just, this one that occurred to me like 2 weeks ago. It's like, wait a minute, how do I know she can't drive at night? Right? I've totally sucked into this thing. And I didn't even realize. That's what I was basically going along with the manipulation that I didn't realize that, and
I wish you could see her face.
yeah, and her, yeah. Well, she didn't intend to manipulate, I manipulated myself, right? So,
Good save, good
that's
save.
right. Well, it's really, I was manipulated. I didn't realize that I was being that, so.
You want to address that, Doug?
Well, it's definitely other than conscious. It's not that you're doing it. And it's just funny, as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking of my daughter is 4.5, and she starts doing the thing like, well, no, do it for me. Do it for me. And we, because we care and we get something out of it, there's secondary gains by us taking care of people. Like my mother, her husband is in a nursing home he had multiple strokes. And her entire life is a caregiver. Like she is, every day she's going there, making sure he's getting his lunch. And she's got the binder, she's doing all of that. She's the eyes and ears for him because he's got expressional aphasia, he's all that. But I notice with her, she's getting a sense of value because of it as well. It becomes her purpose. And at the same time, she has her breakdowns of, I got no life of my own, I can't do this, I can't do that. And then she gets filled with resentment. And she doesn't realize it, but it happens. There's an old story about you take a frog and you throw it in boiling water, it'll jump out. Put it in lukewarm water, turn the heat up, the water starts to heat up, the frog doesn't know the difference, and then boils to death. And oftentimes we experience that as well because we're locked in and because we're so loving and caring, we want to be supportive, and we get some positive reinforcement. Thank you, honey. Oh, yeah, look at all this. I got this love for doing it, but then if other parts of us start getting compromised, then we start resenting. So believe it or not, we each have to be responsible for our own self-care and the communication, a space like this to have an opportunity to share the confusion, share some of the stories, share the challenges, and then the awareness and have fun. I love how you guys are laughing about some of these challenges. If you don't have that sense of humor and you don't just have that compassion for each other, because like what you shared, what do you mean? I know I don't have it, but I'm here with you and I'm by proxy experiencing almost as much. It's not as internalized, of course. And if we start getting really deep into like universal oneness and divinity, we feel each other's pain, we feel each other's stress, we feel each other's challenges, and because we're so empathetic, we end up experiencing the same level of pain, and then we do what we can, and we get lost within it. I don't know if that answered the question, but because you know some
Okay,
time.
so we're out of time. Thanks, Doug.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Anybody have any quick questions or anything to add? Hope we didn't bore you too much. Everybody get what they feel okay? Feel supported?
Questions? No?
Feel like you got something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always, I don't go on Facebook, I don't do any of those things. I own a tech company, but I'm the less tech guy, that you'd ever meet. But you guys can always find me, through Sue or whatever. If you guys ever want to call me or just have a chat, I'm always up for that. And
If you are on Facebook, there is a Facebook support group for spouses and caregivers. There's also one that is for, it's called Ocular Melanoma Community Supporter Family Friends or something, Family Friends and Supporters. That one just started. There are patients in there, but the spouse group, there's no patients, it's only spouses or caregivers. So there are some of those support groups on Facebook if you don't really feel like going to one. Check those out. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Next is, we're going to open the window and we're going to talk more about all this great stuff and how to handle ocular melanoma outside of your little circle. We're going to talk about your bigger circle.